18. You've been reaching out to investors across the country as well as in foreign countries. The UK was your first destination. I understand that soon you will be visiting the US. You talk about the future begins in West Bengal, and a lot of data has actually been put together. I'm looking at the data that's been supplied by the West Bengal government as well as the CSO. At GVA, the West Bengal growth rate is coming at about 10.48% for FY14-15. The agri and allied sector growth is much higher than the national average at 6.46%. Services growing at about 12%. Industry at 8%. Per capita at almost 13%. If you can give us a sense of how much you've been able to draw in by way of private investment, because the story is looking better on several parameters as I've just pointed out. But what has that resulted in terms of private investment into the state?
I think private investment comes when you have certain parameters met. The first of which, of course, is macroeconomic parameter, which you have so succinctly summed up for us, for the state, data coming from the center. Second, of course, is the private investment comes when you have infrastructure development.
Yes.
Now, you'd be happy to know that the growth in infrastructure, it's phenomenal, so I have to read you the exact number. Take, for example, state plan expenditure, which goes into various forms of things that the industry uses. That has grown by 311% in the last 4 years, which is a record of sorts. More interesting is that capital expenditure,
that's right,
from where you have roads, bridges, etc., that has gone up by 601%. To give the exact figure, 2,225 crores when we came to office. It's 13,375 crores now. So industry looks forward to capital expenditure, both in human capital, social infrastructure, physical infrastructure. Now, all this is the backdrop to the fact that companies after companies are now expanding. I'll give you two quick examples. TCS, Data Consulting Service, it has got 40 acres of land on which they are building for 20,000 additional IT professionals.
Okay.
Now you go to manufacturing. Tata Metallics, which is located in one of our parks, has just asked us a few weeks ago for another 300 acres in the park.
Okay.
Our own park, for expansion. Now you take the case of Anil Ambani's group, 600 crores investment in a cement plant. Imami, another cement plant. Now you'd be interested to know, we have now just probably going into production is the largest fertilizer plant, not only in eastern India, probably among the largest in the country.
Okay.
Matix, which is a sister body to SR Group.
Okay.
They have put on the ground 6,500 crores and now moving to 8,000 crores.
Okay.
That's over $1 billion. Very next to it is the SR Johnson tiles. And I was so happy in Delhi when Kajaria, Ashok Kajaria, came to the meeting and said, I'm going to go do tiles.
Okay.
And great thing was the tiles uses gas.
So is there a cumulative number, sir? You've given us several instances of companies that are now either hiking their plans in West Bengal or putting in fresh investment. Is there a number over the last 4 years of what you've been able to draw in?
Absolutely. There's a number, and I've said it on the floor of the assembly, which means I can be eligible for privilege motion if I don't say rightly. Till last month, the total since we came to office is 87,000 crores, which is either completed or in the process of completion. So the examples I've given you are only indications of this 84,000 crores and by 87,000 crores. By the way, this is only medium and large industry.
Okay.
I'll give an example from small industry. We may have had as many as 52,000 additional small and medium enterprises. Over the last 4 years, our number of clusters have grown from 48 to over 300.
Okay.
They are very labor intensive.
Okay.
Creates many more jobs.
Since you're talking about labor, so let me bring to your attention the World Bank report. You've come in at the 11th position as far as the overall state ranking is concerned. Percentage-wise, on the 98 parameters that the World Bank has assessed states, you've come in at a little under 47%. A lot of work needs to be done. As per that report, acceleration required on a whole bunch of parameters. For instance, single window clearance. And I know the government has made the attempt to go in for a single window clearance through your Shilp Saathi program. Other areas where they believe that acceleration is required, for instance, on e-courts and so on and so forth. But on one front, they have very clearly acknowledged the work that's been done by your government, and that is as far as tax-related norms, but using technology are concerned. And you are one of the 3 states that have been able to move that.
E-taxation.
E-taxation. What do you make of the report, and what more can we expect in terms of the areas where the World Bank report says more needs to be done?
We need to understand what is the methodology. Number 2, to be honest with you, the DIPP came to Kolkata. We didn't see the World Bank guys.
Okay.
So we'd like to know from the bank as to what is the contribution that the bank made. If we are short somewhere, if we are weak somewhere, we'll rectify it. But I don't think our, as you said, e-taxation is number 1. We got the highest award in the country, given by the central government in Gandhinagar. Therefore, I don't see why we are 11. I'm sure there are reasons. I'd like to study the methodology.
Political reasons, you believe?
Well, I don't know. You know, the top 5 states I find are probably all from one political perspective. Maybe they are doing well.
With the exception of Andhra Pradesh.
Andhra Pradesh is also an NDA state, don't forget. But that's okay. I'm not going to make this into a political debate. But the point is, ideally, I'd like to know the methodology from which will arise where we are weak, where we are strong, and whether where we are strong has been weighted correctly. You know, the trick to this is how you weight it. The number of tree felled, if you give it a high weight and you give something else low weight, so I would not like to dispute this without having the methodology in front of me.
Okay. Irrespective of what the World Bank says, but let's talk about the road ahead, because you yourself have acknowledged that more work needs to be done to draw in private investment and to get the business climate to be a lot more robust. What more can we expect, for instance, as far as labor reforms are concerned? Land is not an issue. As per your government, you believe that you have 4,500 acres that is available with physical infrastructure for the taking if private sector wants it. What can we expect, at least on issues like land, labor, and so on and so forth?
I think what is interesting is, as far as land is concerned, you have said 4,500 crores, which is in our own parks, ready to go. But in addition, we have 1,00,000 acres, 100,000 acres, with different departments of the government, which can be availed for industry. For example, just now, the Animal Husbandry Department has given over 300 acres to the industry department, West Bengal Industrial Development Corporation, to develop an industrial park. So the land bank, as Mamata Banerjee has repeatedly said, consists of 1,00,000 acres, along with, of course, the developed infrastructure land, which is 4,400 plus another 4,000 under infrastructure construction. So as far as land is concerned, this is a red herring. In West Bengal, there is no problem with land. Whoever has asked for land has got it immediately. Now, the second question is, which you've asked, how are we going to improve ourselves further? There's no end to improvement. We should be world class. We should be competitive. You'd be happy to know that in a month and a half or so, you will see something which I'd like to keep as a mystery.
Give us some sense of what we can expect.
Well, you know, the issue is that electronically doing ease of business. I think your viewers would like to understand that when somebody applies to the industry ministry, clearances essentially come from non-industry.
That's right.
So you have the environment ministry, you have irrigation, you have fire, you have all kinds of departments. Power, for example, you have to provide power. Water, you have to provide. All these clearances come from other departments. Now, I would like to know which state in the country has entirely electronically delivered all these permissions. What we have done is deemed permission. That I would like to know which state has done. As you know, 20 days, 15 days, 30 days, these are all announced data. After which, if you don't get the permission, it's deemed given. The one I could not do, or our government couldn't do, deemed, is environment. We made it 15 days for green, 30 days for orange, and 60 days for those which are probably to be debated, 60 days. I cannot make it deemed because there's a public hearing involved. Barring that, what we are looking at is a complete electronic process, which no state has ever done or never attempted to do. And you know who's our partner in this? Hewlett Packard.
Okay. And this will go online, you're saying, in a month's time?
Let me take a look at that. I don't want to make a commitment. If it happens in full form, I'm sure the Chief Minister will inaugurate that. But that's the kind of vision that the state has. Are you aware that all tendering by a government procurement in this state entirely is by e-tender? You cannot do a paper tender in West Bengal. 63 departments. I would like to know which state has complete e-tender. So these are governance issues of ease of not only doing business but ease of governance, which needs to be done. Perhaps you don't know that the Kanyashri program, which has got worldwide publicity, the reason they got the best award again in Gandhinagar for All India competition was because it was the technology used for the girl child.
That's right.
24 lakh girls have registered all on E. 22 lakh have got their money all on e-process. If that is not governance, which is a part of e-governance, what is?
Bunch of sectors that the government believes it wants to attract investment into: urban infrastructure and housing, food processing, horticulture, MSME and textiles, IT. You want to do a gift city equivalent, I believe, in West Bengal as well, and convert West Bengal into a financial services hub, hospitality, energy and infrastructure, healthcare and education, manufacturing. Don't you believe that by trying to spread yourself across all of this, you may not really be able to do justice? Would you not like to identify one or two key areas which then become the USP, which become really in that sense the brand as far as the state of West Bengal is concerned? Because you're late in the race when it comes to manufacturing, you're late in the race when it comes to financial services, you're late in the race when it comes to IT services.
I think that's a very good question indeed. Let me submit to you. Let me give you one or two of the flavor of this whole range. First, we have just announced 6 townships. Entirely on government lands.
Okay.
Each township has a theme. You want to do education and health, you go to Siliguri, beautiful land at the foothills of the Himalayas. You build 25% of your township on the theme of health and education.
Okay.
25% on low-cost housing, and the 50% you build malls, you build housing, whatever you want. Sometimes you may want to cross-subsidize some of that. Similarly, Shantiniketan, the center of the Kavi Guru Rabindranath Tagore. What are we doing there? What is the theme? Culture, art and culture. 25%. You go to Baruipur, it is for the elderly. People like me, I guess, you know, who've crossed the age of 60. So you create, and there's a huge demand for housing in that area for a township. So this is a unique project of 6 townships entirely on government land. Now, in addition...
What is the scope there for private sector participation?
Well, you'd be interested to know, when we were in Delhi doing the promotional work for the next Global Bengal Business Summit, Bengal Global Business Summit to take place in January, interestingly, American companies with whom we met as a part of AmCham, they all offered to help in townships. Why? Cisco said, look, we have technology you can use. Prati, you know, part of the United Technologies, they said we have township technology which will be digitalizing your process. 3M came up and said we'll do something. So what I'm saying to you is, these are not only intelligent and smart, but they are green. Newtown Rajarhat, which is emerging, people say that, you know, right inside the Rajarhat we have a financial hub. Do you know that 19 banks have paid the money? So money is, you put your money where the mouth is, and have taken land in our financial hub, 19 banks of India.
And is this going to be modeled on the gift city?
This will be modeled on the financial services hub of the world.
Right.
Where we have made a very special exception. 40% of the building that you construct, you can have housing for your bank employees. Can you imagine being able to walk down to your bank? This is a new model. You don't have to drive in the city. So this is a financial hub, and I'm very delighted that State Bank of India, seeing this energy, is building its entire training center in banking next to the financial hub on a 10-acre land.
Okay.
So this is a USP that after Mumbai, which is obviously the financial capital of India, Kolkata is going to someday pit Mumbai by building this financial hub.
You know, when you're talking about creating West Bengal as a financial services hub, hospitality hub, textile hub and so on and so forth, what is this going to translate into as far as job creation is concerned? The Battle of Bengal is in 2016. This is going to be an issue that I'm sure that your government is going to talk about. Your government would want to claim ownership as far as this issue is concerned. What will this actually translate into as far as job creation is concerned, and also as far as the state's GDP is concerned? Your claim is that you will double the state's GDP over the next 5 years.
Yes, I think the most important part of all this is ours is a people-oriented government. We are pro-poor, let me make it clear. But that means we are complementary to being pro-business. People see contradictions in that. That's foolish. So our idea is whatever you do has to create jobs.
So what is the outlook then as far as revenue generation is concerned? Because as you said, your priority will be to address the needs of the poor. Expenditure is going to be on social sector schemes as far as the government is concerned, and that has been the emphasis even in the last 4 years. What are you going to do as far as revenue generation is concerned, besides, of course, trying to attract private industry, and what kind of growth are you factoring in?
Well, you'll be happy to know that there's a record created on this subject. When we came to office, the total revenue own taxes collected in West Bengal was 21,000 crores. Last year, we went to 40,000 crores. Doubling in 3 years has not been seen in West Bengal, to my knowledge, in any state in the country. So how did we double that? As you said at the beginning, due to massive e-based fiscal reform, tax reform. Our next phase is growth related. We have 10.48% GVA growth of West Bengal as against 7.5 for India. That GDP growth, if oriented towards job related growth, it connects the whole process. In fact, we feel that the capital expenditure growth of 600% means releasing of the Keynesian multiplier, which therefore is translating into GDP or GVA growth of the state. So, and once GVA grows, your tax coffers also increase. So we see a very connected medium between jobs, capital intensive processes which are complementary to jobs because they create Keynesian multiplier effects, and of course increasing our own tax revenues so that we can spend more on infrastructure and social infrastructure, and also for the poor in terms of empowerment of the poor.
You know, given your ideology or your government's philosophy as far as foreign direct investment is concerned, you're opposed to foreign direct investment in a bunch of sectors, whether it's insurance. Of course, the central government has been able to hike that to 49%. Pension, continue to oppose it. Retail, you continue to oppose it. And yet when you do road shows in the UK, now you're headed to the US, I believe, what is the response that you get? Because I'm sure that that would confuse foreign investors about whether they should put in big ticket investments into the state. Tomorrow you may decide that you're averse to FDI in some of the other sectors as well.
I think what is important is, Shireen, our manifesto is absolutely clear and consistent. One thing people will say to you, that West Bengal is consistent. Yes, we opposed foreign direct investment in retail, and look what happened. What happened to Walmart and its joint venture process? It fell apart. Now they have gone into not retail but into wholesale. Now what is interesting is what we predicted happened. You are aware, they are also aware today that the real retail happens at the multiple decentralized developing economy level of Pop and Mount stores.
As state governments sort of get into a race with each other to try and draw in investors, and you're talking to exactly the same people because everyone is trying to create jobs, everyone is trying to create financial hubs, IT hubs, so on and so forth. What is it going to be that will get people to West Bengal as opposed to Andhra Pradesh, as opposed to Rajasthan, as opposed to Gujarat or Maharashtra? I mean, it's the same. The Foxcons of the world have toured pretty much every state and spoken to every state government today. What is it that West Bengal will be able to offer that will be the West Bengal differentiator?
I think the first differentiator is the nature of the market. No states that you've mentioned, all those states I know, has 3 countries, nations in its border as markets. Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan. No state has entire Northeast 7 sisters and the 8th sister, Sikkim, on its border. where they have to, that's a catchment area. No state has ports which can service Bihar, Jharkhand, UP. They are landlocked. So you're looking at a market much bigger than West Bengal. Number two, which of the states in India have their own natural resources? We have coal, and we have coal neighbors together. Which state has coal bed methane, please tell me? It's only West Bengal. Already 2 companies are bringing out coal bed methane. As you know, Great Eastern Energy has 150 rigs bringing out coal bed methane, and SR will be on the line very soon. Which state has it? We are the largest producer in fruits and vegetables, which means 40% spoilage in the country. Huge scope for food processing, which Pepsi has done with potatoes in West Bengal, but you can do with everything else. So you have that. Labor. As far as skills are concerned, why is the Microsoft putting up a center of excellence? Why is Cognizant in West Bengal expanding by 5,000 additional people? Why is DQA started an institute with us on animation? Why? Because the scientific and the high-end skill activity of West Bengal is unique in the country. Major institutions and universities are in Kolkata.
Physical infrastructure, and I want to talk about the power situation in specific, because this is a cause for concern, not just for the banking sector, but it's a cause for concern for the government as well. A lot of the state electricity boards, or DISCOMs as we call them, are in trouble. There was already a plan that was announced by the UPA, which really hasn't been able to deliver. We're now possibly going to see an extension of that financial restructuring plan. The Prime Minister called a meeting of state governments just 48 hours ago to discuss this issue. You've been able to address this issue in the state of West Bengal.
I think it's fascinating to know. First, the state is power surplus, but we know that as industry is coming in, we'll need more power. So those are the numbers that you read out vis-a-vis future plans. I don't think people know that our DISCOMs, the public sector DISCOMs, and of course the private sector must be the same, running at a profit. I want you to show me some states in the country where all their DISCOMs are running at a profit.
Okay, so finally let me ask you, you talk about West Bengal and the growth prospects in the coming decade. As I pointed out, you're very clearly articulating, and I read from, once again, the claims that the government is making to reach double-digit growth rates by 2017, to sustain it for at least 8 years, and to double the economy by 2025. This is, of course, assuming that you're going to be back in office in 2016 to start with. Areas of focus, areas of impetus, areas of priority as you try and achieve those targets that you set out for yourself?
I think the greatest impetus of West Bengal is human capital. It used to be the #1 industrial state, and for 34 years we saw a decline under the previous government led by the communists, for obvious reasons. I don't blame anybody. It's a fact. We have first job for this government under Mamata Banerjee was to turn that around. I think we are on the rising curve now. This is admitted all over the country. If on a rising curve you provide the human capital momentum, the physical infrastructure momentum, and resources available to you, and markets available to you, and clean leadership, the whole idea is take advantage of the rising curve, ride the growth, because other states may have set in diminishing returns. We are on the increasing return space. So take advantage of increasing returns. That's the appeal that I would make through you.
Dr. Mitra, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for taking us through a very detailed assessment of what has changed on the ground, what you are hoping will change in the future, and what the offer is to investors, both domestic and foreign. Thank you, as always, for your time here on TV.